God who made us all. A year ago, we did not know what we were about to learn, what we could lose and somehow live anyway, where we would find comfort and where it would elude us, whose lives matter to whom, why we have kitchens in our homes. In mid-March 2020, all I knew for sure is that hoarding toilet paper doesn't make you safe. It makes you selfish. But God, it feels like the world is about to open back up. I'm both thrilled and kind of scared about that because I am not who I was a year ago. I want so badly to hug my friends again, to laugh like hell again, to have amazing conversations again, and yet I am not sure how long I can do any of this before crying or getting really quiet. My emotional protective gear has worn so thin, and grief just leaks out of it everywhere now. I am so afraid that I will never be who I once was. And I am also afraid that I will be. And yet when I quiet my anxious thoughts, I start to suspect that I am now closer to the me you have always known and loved. So help me trust that, Lord. As things change, help us be gentle with ourselves and with each other. We are all wearing newborn skins right now. Amen.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God, yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God, yeah. Snow shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Snow wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Snow wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah.
Just then, a religion scholar stood up with a question to test Jesus. "Teacher, what do I need to get eternal life?" He answered, "What's written in God's law? How do you interpret it?" He said, "That you love the Lord your God with all your passion and prayer and muscle and intelligence, and that you love your neighbor as well as you do yourself." "Good answer," said Jesus. "Do it, and you'll live." Looking for a loophole, he asked, "And just how do you define neighbor?" Jesus answered by telling a story. There was once a man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. On his way, he was attacked by robbers. They took his clothes, beat him up, and went off, leaving him half dead. Luckily, a priest who was on his way down the same road, but when he saw him, he angled across to the other side. And then a Levite religious man showed up, and he avoided the same injured man. A Samaritan traveling the road came on him, and when he saw the man's condition, his heart went out to him. He gave him first aid, disinfecting and bandaging his wounds, and then he lifted him onto his donkey and led him to an inn and made him comfortable. In the morning, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, "Take good care of him. If it costs any more, put it on my bill. I will pay you on my way back." What do you think? Which of these 3 became the neighbor to the man attacked by robbers? "The one who treated him kindly," the religion scholar responded. Jesus said, "Go and do the same."
What is a clear sign of someone who is a disciple of Jesus Christ? What virtues should stand out abundantly clear for a follower of the Lord, and what should distinguish the vision and mission of Christ's church? Well, in the final dialogue Jesus had with his disciples before his passion, death, and resurrection, Jesus reminded his followers of this: "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. By this all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." And that comes from the Gospel of John chapter 13. The first most fundamental description of God and of his followers is love. Love for one another, love for our neighbor, love even for our enemies. Unconditional love for all people. Love that goes beyond a simple emotion, but is an action as well, something that we concretely do. Love is an active verb. Love in action describes another virtue that is central for all Christians and needs to be at the center of every Christian community, at the very heart of the mission and vision of the church, capital C church. And that is compassion. Expressing not only empathy for one another, where we enter into the suffering and struggles of another person, but going beyond empathy to action, putting a concrete form onto our love. The story of Taylor Meehan, an 11-year-old boy who would go with his mother once a month to serve meals to homeless people, exemplifies this spirit of compassion. One cold January night, with the snow blowing outside, Taylor helped to serve more than 600 people. But more than just serve meals, he would interact in a loving and compassionate way with each person that he served. As he brought food to one man, he noticed how the man shivered from the cold outside. The old man had a thin coat and shoes with gaping holes in them. When Taylor saw this, he stopped serving in order to run to the supply closet to hunt for extra shoes for the man. He only found one pair of shoes, and that pair of shoes was a pink pair of fuzzy slippers that were women's shoes. With the slippers in his hands, he ran back to the shivering man and got down on his knees next to the man's feet. He quickly stuck out his own big feet and pressed them against the stranger's. He laughed and said out loud, "Mine are about the same size as yours." Gently, Taylor pulled off the man's torn shoes. The bottom of one shoe flapped loosely away from the top. Taylor placed the worn shoe on the floor and then proceeded to take off his own brand new basketball sneakers. He felt the icy cold of the man's feet as he pulled dry socks over them. He carefully guided the man's stiff feet into the warm, new shoes. The man rubbed his eyes and spoke to him in broken English. He placed his hand softly on Taylor's shoulder to express his gratitude. Taylor just sat with the man as he then ate his meal, silently holding one of Taylor's hands. Afterwards, as the young boy helped to clean up, he walked around the hall wearing a pair of women's fuzzy pink slippers. Some people smiled in a quizzical way as they looked at his feet, but Taylor, he just beamed the largest smile, thinking back on his newfound friend. Compassion, love in action. Love for God translates into a compassionate love for others, especially those in need all around us. Throughout the life of Jesus, we see how he offered such compassion to others. Today's gospel reading was just another example where Christ tells us about the importance of compassion. The story of the Good Samaritan is one we've all heard countless times, but it's so good to come back and revisit these ageless stories. We can always learn new lessons from these stories. You know, there are multiple reasons Jesus told this story, but I want to focus on one point, and if it's not already obvious enough, it's the compassion of the Samaritan man who had compassion on the injured man on the road. Different versions of the Bible use different words. Some use pity, some use great pity, but others use compassion to capture the emotion that this Samaritan man had on the man who was injured in the road. The Samaritan reached out to the man with compassion, and that is how we should approach others. Not just those who are physically injured or have physical needs, but those with injuries or needs that aren't seen with the naked eye. We should have compassion on all of our neighbors, as Jesus so often had on the people that he healed and spoke to during his time on earth. Now remember, compassion is love in action. Having empathy for one another is one thing, but the best, or the next best, or maybe even the next better step is to take action. Now, we all may not be able to do the things that Christ did, yet we see how he sets an example for all of his followers by noticing those who are suffering and in need, reaching out to them with love and kindness, helping them realize that they are not alone in their despair. And then Jesus would offer whatever he could to alleviate their situation. When one is suffering and in need, what do people need most? One could argue that their greatest need is for someone to simply notice them, for someone to enter into the depths of their sorrow or pain or struggle. When one feels that they are not alone, they can find great comfort and strength in that. When we empathize with others, offering a loving presence, even if we can't resolve their problems, we give someone hope to go on, to persevere, and to never despair or give up. The word compassion comes from its Latin root, which means co-suffering. Compassion involves not only feeling for another person, but feeling with another person, entering into their struggle with them. Now, of course, the beauty of our faith is that Jesus not only sets the supreme example of how to reach out in compassion to others, but he asks each one of us to imitate him. In the world today, we are Christ's hands and feet. We are his ambassadors who bring his love and compassion to all people everywhere. If we are living our faith in an authentic manner, no one would skeptically ask the question, where is God in the midst of the world's suffering? They wouldn't ask this question because they would see God in us. They would experience God's love through the concrete compassion that we offer to others. Now, we would do well to remember that the Christian message is not about me, it's about all of us. An other-centered love story focused on how we can show God's love and compassion in concrete ways to the world in need. And through loving others who are created in the image of God, we express our own love for our Creator. As Jesus himself clearly told and showed his followers, the world will know that we are his disciples by our love and our compassion. Now, let us go out this week and express this love and compassion in our words, in our actions, and in our everyday life. And now I want to close this time of reflection by reading the following that was attributed to Saint Teresa of Avila. It goes like this. Christ has no body but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he looks compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. Yours are the eyes. You are his body. Peace, friends.
A man crosses the street in rain, stepping gently, looking 2 times north and south, because his son is asleep on his shoulder. No car must splash him. No car drive too near to his shadow. This man carries the world's most sensitive cargo, but he's not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say, "Fragile, handle with care." His ear fills up with breathing. He hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another. The road will only be wide. The rain will never stop falling.